everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Awaken Together podcast. I'm Kat,
I'm Jen.
and today we're really excited to chat with you about one of our favorite things, and this is festivals. But more importantly, the sense of community and connectedness that festivals bring us. So we have some fun stories to share with you. Jen, if you could start us off with your most recent experience, that'd be awesome.
Yes, so I am coming fresh off of a yoga festival known as Floyd Yoga Jam, and Kat is fresh off of Burning Man, so it's so cool to get to come together and share this all with you. And yeah, it kind of all ends up zooming out to me and Kat's big dream of living on a commune. You literally get like a little nugget and a little taste of what that can look like at these kind of festival style, like community events. And Floyd is so special. It's so nice to be able to share. So it's a very intimate and small festival, like 1,000 people, and it's in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the woods in Virginia. And this is my 5th year going. And I'm not new to yoga festivals. I have gone to Wanderlust and several other different types of these things. And what I love about it is the yoga component is obviously really cool, but it's been really inspiring not only to see the different teaching styles kind of come together, but it's also this like really big drop in on depth and connection. So I've shared on this podcast before, like I've done like hundreds of different eye gazing with strangers. I do all these things at these festivals, like really intimate, like ecstatic dancing and partner dancing with strangers that I don't even know. And it's crazy to think back to how many layers of healing like has happened, and I can see my growth at these festivals more than anything, because I remember just being at these festivals earlier. Like my first Floyd, I was so scared of some of the stuff they were asking us to do. Like it was awful. I was like, I walked away from some things just completely uncomfortable in my own skin and like not wanting to be seen in that intimate of a way. And now I'm like, give it to me. Like, let's go. But I'm still, it's still nerve wracking, but it's just so cool to also see how much more comfortable I've gotten in leaning into discomfort. And yeah, we camped out. We had a really cool tent site. I had so many beautiful moments with different individuals at classes, lots of open sharing circles. We did like a goddess dance class, and it was really fun to just like energetic play with different people and look face to face with someone and just communicate without words. And it's raw and wild and kind of visceral. And yeah, I had all these beautiful little connection moments, and just to be under the stars at night and feel plugged into nature in that way, like it's just really beautiful and healing. And yeah, in all the different times I've gone to yoga festivals, I feel like layers of myself have just been ripped that have blocked me from that ability to lean fully into connection. Danny proposed to me at a yoga festival back in the day, and like they just are like so precious to me. And Kat, I love that you kind of enter this like other kind of worlds, but along some similar principles. But I know you have so much experience in music festivals, but we want to hear about Burning Man. Like we have an inside person to give us the stories. And I told Kat, like while I was at my yoga festival, one of the musicians made an announcement that Burning Man was like getting flooded. So I had no cell phone service, and I had just this calm day. Then I'm like, Kat, my cat, is she okay? Like I wanted to reach out like right away. And yeah, Kat can give the full story. So let's go.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I mean, festivals are such a beautiful coming together of so many things, like you said, right? I've been to one yoga festival. It was like a day fest, so on a smaller scale. But yeah, just to have like all the personal development workshops happening in unison with people who just share this love of yoga, and not just the physical practice, but all elements of it,
Yeah,
right?
the
It's so
unity.
beautiful.
Yeah.
The unity, yes. And so we were talking before this about like how Floyd on that 1,000 person guest count, like that is a small scale, like super sweet spot to be. And then the one festival that, like you, Jen, that I've been to the most is Electric Forest. I know I've talked about that here on the pod a bunch too. And they have a couple different spaces for workshops. They have sound healings and just all those ways to plug in for people who are looking to go that little bit deeper into themselves. And I think that's a really important part of it all in combination with the music and being in nature. It's
Mm.
also healing together with community all around at all times. One of my favorite things about Electric Forest too is that everybody just wants to connect. You just go in there eager to compliment people and like authentically. Like a greeting that we say for Electric Forest is happy forest. And this is
Mm.
something that it's like aloha. It's like a hello, it's a goodbye, it's like a signing off. Even if you see someone who was at the festival in a gas station, like on your way home or something, it's happy forest.
So
And
cute.
you have that little, you see their eyes light up like, oh, you're one of me, right? I'm one of you. Just that beautiful connection
You drop
second
your
that
you drop your layers of who you are, and then you go into this this other kind of reality. I love it.
That's right. It's like the ego dissolves. It's like we are all here together. We are all one. That just true unity. It's so magical. And then Burning Man was new for me this year. It was my first year going. Kyle and I went together with two of our best friends, Kirsten and Brandon, and I'd heard Kirsten had been before, and so she'd told me about all the magic of it many times, and she hadn't been since 2019. So it'd been a couple years for her, but earlier this year, I texted her because I saw someone else on Instagram get tickets, and I was just like, could you possibly be up for Burning Man this year? And her response was, I could always possibly be up for Burning Man. And so then we convinced our guys, which kind of was an easy sell. He actually wanted to go more than me for most of our relationship. And I was the harder sell because I was nervous about all the elements of it. Just needing to bring everything that you have, your food, your water. There's no showers there. Like, you're really roughing it.
Watching Kat get
Um,
prepared for this festival, guys, was next level. I just want to
it
say,
took months, months, and so much money.
uh-huh.
So now it's like we have all the things. So we're totally looking to go again next year.
I love it.
But getting tickets is such a hard part too. Kirsten was really lucky to get theirs in the general on sale, but it's like a lottery. We were waiting in line for 2 hours and didn't get them before it sold out. So we were really lucky that we were accepted into an incredible camp that one of my yoga teacher friends here in Denver leads. It's called Consensual Abduction. And it's like kind of alien themed. We have abductions. That's like our main gift and offering as a camp, where it's a whole sensory experience. So you know that Jen and I love it. It's like so present, and there's just consent. It's consensual. So you fill out a form, you share like what you're comfortable with, what you're not, and then we honor that. We respect it. And then we role play and get really weird and blindfold you and tip you upside down, and then just kind of like harvest your limbs. No big deal.
Festival
Oh,
life.
seriously, it's like so silly. And Burning Man is an older crowd, kind of like Floyd is, right, Jen?
Yeah, it's such a big age range. It's crazy to see that and get the wisdom from like the older, wiser hippies. I love that.
Yes, I love like at Electric Forest. There are older people, but vast majority are like 18 to 25, I'd
Yeah.
say. And so we're like kind of on the older side there. But here, the median age of Burning Man is 37.
I love that.
So I love that. I'm like coming in at 32, like, yeah, I'm in my prime here. Like, and then just seeing everybody else in their prime, no matter what age they are. It's very
and seeing
humbling.
people that have lived a life that honors like kind of the elements that come out from festivals. It's like very special
Yeah.
to get to see people that have you get, I feel like it gets categorized so much as being this like young kind of careless party thing. It can get
Yeah.
labeled as that so easily, and then seeing these like intentional people that have lived their life kind of embodying the things that you take away from these festivals is a special little tab of it too.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. These have the potential to be extreme catalyst for just changing your life. It really forces you to face the things that aren't working for you. It just becomes all so clear. And so my experience, as I'm sure you all heard, Burning Man being on the news this year like crazy, it's really funny to me having been there to see these news articles now because it is just so far from what my experience was.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah, people did try to drive off when there was a driving ban and leave when it was raining. But there was a driving ban. Like, didn't you know that was going to happen? So we were all kind of like, oh yeah, these idiots got stuck because they tried to leave when you weren't supposed to leave. It's like, just follow the rules. And
Yeah.
like, if you don't have enough stuff, ask your neighbor. We have so much more to go around. And so that's a big part of the festival. There's kind of like in yoga how we have the fold, the 8-path fold to enlightenment that we've shared in past episodes. We also have at Burning Man the 10 principles, which for this whole social experience, social experiment, Burning Man is not a festival. Very clear on that. I learned that this year. It is way bigger, way more than that. It's really hard to even explain. It's a city that's put up and taken down with 80,000 people,
Wild.
and it only exists for a week every single year in the middle of the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, where nothing else lives. There's barely any bugs. There's no animals. It's so dry. And so it's just kind of crazy, this whole crazy thing. So yeah, we had more than enough food and water. We had enough for 3 more days if we had gotten stranded. But yeah, basically the whole sense is like our camp came together in a way that was so freaking beautiful. And we had a lot of veterans who'd been there for like 5, 6+ years. And they shared the sentiment that like this year brought everyone together like no other year had. I think sharing something that was really hard when the rain came, it got muddy. Our tent flooded. We were lucky to have our bed on a platform, so our bed was dry, but our best friends, they didn't have that, and they had an air mattress on the ground, and so their sheets got wet, and so they had to sleep in their car for like the rest of the time, which was I think 3 or 4 days after that too. And so everybody just kind of came together that next day, asked like, do you need anything? What can I give you? What can I help with? And we had the best party of the week as a camp that day.
Aw.
We called it our end of the world party.
I love that.
And I know these 2 people in our camp, they were amazing. They surprised everybody with brunch. So we were, mind you, while the news was sharing about how crazy everything was at Burning Man and how there was cannibals and Ebola and eels, like just nonsense. Like none of that was there. We were having the best time eating eggs Benedict with freaking caviar. I kid you not, served 100 people that day, had a 6-hour party with music bumping from all of our camp DJs, and it was just the best, like so special. We strapped trash bags to our feet, secured them with duct tape. It was the hottest fashion trend on the playa.
Sexy.
And we were all just like, what's your method? Is it sock bag sock? Is it shoe sock bag? And it was just so funny, you know? And it just reminds you that everything is perspective and mindset. And sure, I mean, we could have just stayed in our tent the rest of the time and moped and been sad. But you kind of realize what your options are when you only have a few of them.
Mhm.
And we had no cell service. We were with a bunch of other people who were also in the same boat. So we made a conscious decision to practice joy and take care of each other and take care of ourselves and make the best of it. And I had the freaking time of my life.
I love it.
Yeah. So in thinking about the 10 principles, there were 2 that really stuck out to me the most and really relate to our podcast here too. So the first one is radical self-reliance. And this is that whole notion that you better prepare. You can't be over-prepared, really. Bring enough for you, bring enough for extra days. You basically don't want to be caught burdening other people by your lack of preparedness because they're going through the same stuff themselves. And so you adding to that list, it's not the kindest thing that you can do. So there's that one. And then everything at Burning Man seems to be like a polarizing thing in some way. So the other one, the polarizing principle for me with radical self-reliance is this notion of being community minded. And neither is more important than the other. They're equal. And that sense of being community minded, it's we care about each other so much. We are in the middle of the desert. People can die. People do die every year. It's not for people who are inexperienced. Like, definitely go to festivals before you go to Burning Man, and prepare and research. I was on Reddit every single day. But yeah, just like there's a real gifting culture. There's no money when you're there. There's no real laws. There are some, but it's like, don't hurt people. You can't do drugs in public. Wah. There's rangers all around. But yeah, that sense of just like, we're here. I'm going to gift you this for no other reason than to gift it to you. It's not a trade. It's not a barter. I'm not expecting anything in return, but we are here sharing this beautiful, life-changing experience together. And through those things comes the resiliency, right? And just that notion of being a part of a community and how we all fit into it as well.
Yeah, and when you leave these festivals, and thank you, Kat, for telling us about Burning Man. I'm so glad it was this
my pleasure.
Beautiful experience. I freaking love to hear all the stories. And yeah, but I think with these big events that like are bringing a bunch of people together, where you kind of drop your own personal identity and like lean into this kind of collective energy, but then you also have to keep checking in on your own needs. There's this balance at these festivals of like, you can get so into the energy of all the events happening, but then you have to remember, like, have I eaten? Did I drink my water? Did I take care of myself? And it really teaches you this balance between self and kind of connection and community. And we wanted to talk about that a little bit because I feel like we've ranted about this in so many podcast episodes because it's a huge passion for us. But like, we're not meant to be living so individualistic. And it really does kill me. I think of this all the time, that we are all sitting here having to own like all the stuff to take care of ourselves. Like every person has to have a pair of scissors and a blender and a this and like, all these like tools. And it's just, we don't have like, I feel like we've gotten into a place of so much imbalance where there's so much you now need for yourself. And there's so much like lack of sharing resources that we've gotten like really far away from what our true nature is. And there is so much that can be found in connection. But I do think, like you said, Kat, with the principles, like, there's a lot of layers you have to go through in your own healing journey. Why we promote so many of the stuff that we do on this podcast is because you got to know the layers of yourself enough to kind of identify some of those emotional needs. And I do think you learn a lot of your emotional needs through different relationships and through different connections, but there has to be this balance. And so I learned this I read the book Polysecure, which had this like really good chunk of the book talking about attachment styles. And they talked about on one end of the scale that anxious attachment where you just lean into connection so much it kind of ends up turning into that enmeshment or codependency, and it can feel so hard to know who you are in that connection. That's one end of the extreme, and that's that anxious avoidant attachment, and the other are anxious attachment. And then on the other ends we have avoidant attachment, which can be so much reliance on self-autonomy that like leaning into trusting someone else when you're experiencing something feels nearly impossible. And at both ends of the attachment disorders, we're trying to find this middle ground between our own self-autonomy and also that ability to lean into co-regulation and connection with other people. And I think just dependent on kind of your circumstances growing up, you might fall into one of the two extremes. And I think it's really easy to have all these attachment problems in the society we live in as well, even not just looking at childhood experience. We don't have society that really reflects a good balance of that, because it is so much of every man for themselves, which ends up, we have so many people dealing with mental health struggles, homelessness, all these extremes of like outskirts of society, because there's just not good ways to plug in when you're needing help in the ways that there should be. And it's so much pressure sometimes all falling onto your own shoulders that it's a lot. But within that, you also can drown the people around you when you don't do the work to figure out your own stuff. And then you're constantly looking to other people to tell you where to go, what to do, which direction to take. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think there's constant lessons to help you find the blend in those two.
Totally, totally. And as you were speaking, it also made me think about how like politics ties into this too. And I truly believe that it's this hyper sense of individualization that has really like shaped the Republican Party
Mm-hmm.
and even more like the extreme white right wing.
Yeah.
It's those people who are in very remote areas that don't have, either a really strong community or they only know their community and they haven't seen cities or people who are different than them. And so there's a real fear of people. And so it just makes me think of that
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. It,
And in that avoidance side, it's like there's the lone wolf stereotype that we've all heard. And I feel like people kind of just accept like that as a personality trait, but really it's avoidant attachment and people who've been hurt, along the way and are really afraid to be vulnerable and connect with others. And like you said, the other side of that codependence is um, like other people relying on them so much for your joy,
mhm.
where true joy, true joy really comes from within.
Yeah,
And it's amplified by community, not the other way around.
absolutely. Yeah, and so in
Hmm.
finding this blend of these two things, like I really think it is important that we plug into community spaces. We've shared this on this podcast a lot, but there's going to these big events is incredible, but finding even things in your local community, if you know that you fall into more of the self-isolating mode, how can you find some form of engagement to start practicing leaning out of that? And it all takes practice. I think it's very easy if you fall into the extremes to then want to hop to the other extreme too. Like it's very
Hmm.
easy to fall into these two. And I think keeping the blend is tricky, but it gets better with practice on both sides. But I do think it's beautiful to be able to find people to share resources with. I think the internet's helping so much with us, like being able to find our people easier. And then, yeah, Kat was
Hmm.
sharing a little bit before, if you want to talk about like Boston, like growing up there, like you're looking at the people around you and seeing like, is that plugging me into that highest good between the balance of stuff? Because I think for some, we're not always born into the spot that's going to give us that healthy dynamic. And while you were sharing about
Hmm.
like the far right side, like I feel like in a lot of these regions that are more isolated, and I know like with my southern side of my family, more upbringing, it's such an attachment to the family unit that like there's no venturing out, no breaking into any sense of individuality. They fear it, they smother into that family dynamic so much because it's so scary to think of changing beyond that imbalance.
100%. Totally. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, if you are born into a place and you don't resonate with it, you feel like the black sheep. And I mean, that was surely me growing up in Boston. I never really felt like I fit in. Even if it looked like that on the outside, on the inside, I just felt like something's not right. Or I always felt like I had to change myself to be like others. When I visited Denver on vacation with Kyle in 2016, we were like, whoa. We were just overcome by the culture. And we were only here for a long weekend, but it was palpable. Like we could feel it. And it helped that, bass music. It's the bass music capital of America. And we love that kind of music. And there's climbing and there's a lot of yoga and nature. So there are these key elements that we really loved and we're kind of not getting fulfilled in Boston. So we ultimately decided to move out here. And that's kind of the thing is like if you've tried to find all of those things, that sense of belonging, like-minded beings where you are, and you can't, look somewhere else,
Mhm.
right? Look somewhere else rather than running away from something. Try to run to something so that you can feel really excited about it. Although sometimes, that running away does have to happen just to exit like an unsafe kind of space. But really, like, we are not meant to go through life alone. Like you said
Mhm.
before, Jen,
Yeah.
like we all began in tribes and villages, and that's way more natural for us. We can't get all of our needs met by one person. We need trusted people. And truly, I believe that nothing grows without love. So
Absolutely. And yeah, if you're
surround ourselves.
yeah, surround yourself with love and do the work to kind of sit and reflect on what your emotional needs are and like what that can look like plugging in. I know the periods where I was more by myself, like I deeply needed community for a long time and couldn't find it. But I also, in retrospect, look back to those times as me figuring out at least a couple of the things of what I was wishing and hoping for in those moments when I didn't have people to lean into. So, also knowing that there can be gold found in those periods, but you are not meant to do it alone. And that love is so important. And it's that combination of self love and then also knowing how to balance the giving and receiving of love outside of yourself, too.
That's right. Let that inner winter lead to an inner spring so that you
Uh,
can come out and feel good and be ready to take it all on. And hopefully that means a commune for us because we
Awaken
are so
together
ready.
commune. You guys ready for that? Or
Yes, please sign me up. It's like everyone I talk to these days is like, yes, our generation, this is the new American dream. It's communal living. So I just have this vision of like, we all have our own like bed spaces, bedrooms with our partners or whatever, offices, living space, maybe a small one, but everything else is shared, right? Shared kitchen, shared living
share
space, shared
children. I don't
garden.
want to have a kid,
Yes,
but I will co-parent. And
shared childcare would revolutionize our lives. Like,
yes.
I want a kid, and I right now I'm like, how? I
Uh-huh.
need help.
Right.
But that would solve a lot of things.
Yes, like we'll share it all, make a central space. I think this is also like where we're gearing up to be able to save the planet in so many ways too, because we get so wasteful when we look at things individualistically too far. And I think that's a
Mhm.
huge movement that this generation's going to take is knowing how to yeah, optimize our resources in a different way. We've come a long way as a society in a lot of ways, but we've also fallen behind on some of the things that have been mastered way before this current society's look. And I think we need to kind of blend both the old ancient wisdom and then the new that we've also been able to cultivate with inventiveness and yeah, combined it all for a much healthier protection of this earth and the human species.
Yes, heck yes. Only way is up. And mark our words, it's going to happen. I
Uh-huh.
can feel
Uh-huh.
it.
I so agree. And we so appreciate this community of listeners. Our podcast this season is already doing so good. You guys continue to grow us out. And we so appreciate you sharing the podcast, liking and reviewing on Spotify means a lot. And we now have our podcast up on YouTube, which is amazing. And we want to keep
Mhm.
growing and sharing it all with you. So thank you.
Thank you all so much. We love you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.